for August 23rd, 2022. I want to thank you ladies for showing up. Got a couple of texts. Some people will be showing up a little late-ish, we call it. For those of you that are watching the recording, my name is TJ Zebel. I call myself a professional problem solver. Yes, I have a bunch of wallpaper back there that says I know stuff, but that doesn't mean anything until you can actually share what you know with people. So here we are. If this is your first time, I would appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button and ring the bell and share this with others and leave comments. I got thick enough skin. I'd like to hear what you like, what you don't like, what you would like to like, and what you would like to hear, and all the above. This is Triple T. We do this every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Central and run it for 2 hours. First hour, I basically open my brains and dump them on the table and share bits and pieces with you. And the second hour is open mic and open platform. So if you show up and you've got questions or something that you would like to work on, all of us in the community will be happy to work on them with you. And there's Jonathan, back from Alaska, or still in Alaska. He doesn't know, he can't hear me yet.
There you are.
So are you back from Alaska or still in Alaska?
Back.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was good. It's good.
Looking forward to catching up on that and hearing all the good stuff. Before we get started on today's topicals, anybody got any breakthroughs, ahas, epiphanies, and all the good stuff that they would like to share from the past 7 days? And the silence sets in, and Bueller gets searched for. Bueller? All right, well, then we will dive right into this week's topics that I came up with. If you saw on the Facebook posting of this, it's this week, it's railroad cars, ignorance versus denial, and dealing with your ex, and pause fill. Yes, I can see that setting in on the two of you going, luckily you guys know me well enough, you're like, this should be interesting. So, railroad cars. What do railroad cars have to do with Triple T? Let me tell you. My wife and I moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth area about a year ago, just in time for an interesting record-breaking summer. We've had I believe we finally broke the record on consecutive days over triple digits in heat. And in the last 72 hours, I am pretty sure we've already passed it. We may have broke a record set back in the 1850 something for the amount of rain dropped in a period. Unofficially, I'm going to estimate that we have now reached right around 20 inches in the last 2 days. And there's ironically, I don't know if he's actually working for any actual company. He used to do this stuff as a weatherman. From what I understand, I could be wrong. If I am, then that's the difference between always tell the truth and don't lie. I'm not lying when I say I think. I'm not sure. But the man knows his stuff when it comes to weather, especially for Texas. Grew up here and understands all the stuff that's going on. And apparently, we're getting this rain because we have storms now that are finally breaking through the bubble like a railroad car, like railroad coming through, car after car after car. Instead of having just a big one roll through and you get whatever's in the center. No, these are just stacked, one right after another, after another, after another. And the freight train, the big one, the locomotive came through the other night and delivered an amazing show. Lightning and thunder, and I'm all a fan for it till we woke up the next morning and realized that it amped out my wife's work laptop and her printer, her big LaserJet commercial printer, and possibly the projector in the theater room, and the joys of electrical storage. And we've got a pretty good sized pond at the end of in the back of our property. 4 days ago, you could have walked completely across the pond. It had dried up to where, hi Francine, it had dried up to the point where, yes, you might have gotten some mud stuck to the very bottom of your shoe. Right now, that thing is overflowed, over the top, filled it up in 12 hours or less. Actually, it filled it up completely in about 8 hours. Now, what does this have to do with what we're talking about? And Francine just joined in. We're talking about railroad cars. And a metaphor that I came up with for working on timeline is allowing yourself to see your timeline as a slow-moving freight train with the railroad cars passing by you, and you can actually see every second of every minute of every hour of every day clicking by you. And you can look all the way down your timeline to the point of conception. You can look the other way, all the way down your timeline, all the way past to the end of days. And all of those cars have the potential to hold things, to hold energy, to hold memories, to hold all the above. And so many people are like, well, I got no control over that. It is what it is, what it is. And my life, my past life, it just sucked. Look down there. Look at that car from when I was 5. Look what happened back there. Well, you can still change the color, the tone, and everything that's inside of that, the memories, and you don't have to let it dictate how you act today. But with my corporate clients and those that are working on monies and income, I also got a download of the difference between entrepreneurial thinking versus employee thinking, kind of like Robert Kiyosaki talks about the 4 quadrants. And when you look at the cars going by as income containers, the employee trades hours for dollars. They show up, they work for X amount of time, and they get paid X amount of dollars for each hour that they work. And then at the end of the day, that railroad car gets a cap on it and goes down the line. Nothing else will grow out of that unless they start to invest or learn how to do things to make their money grow. Entrepreneurs will often invest and build a railroad car, but they leave the cap open. They don't put a cap on it, and they send it down. And it may have passed down the line with nothing in it. They worked for the easiest way for me to explain it to a couple of them is if you built something and it took you an hour, and then the day is through. Well, that car is going down the line with that hour of work that you put into that product. 2 weeks down the line, somebody buys that product for $20. At that point, you made $20 for that hour, $20 an hour. All of a sudden, 5 more people buy that product. Now you've got 6 products sold from that hour. You made $120 an hour. But it took you that long for that plant, that seed, that car to gather and bring that money back to you. Does that make sense? So often people are so trained for the employee mindset. Kiyosaki talks about this all the time. And they're so used to work, work, pay, work, work, pay, work, work, pay, that when they put in their 5 train cars of work, then they get their weekend and they go play and have fun, and those 2 train cars go by, and then they work on 5 more train cars, and then they get paid. Trying to switch that mindset around to where I'm building legacy, I'm building income, but I won't see it until it's way down the track. And some of those cars will produce and produce and produce and produce and produce. And one of the great quotes about making income is, until you can learn how to make income while you're sleeping and on vacation, you will work every day of your life. The smart ones, the ones that you're seeing doing all the things that you want, are still working. In fact, a lot of them work their butt off, but they work with a different mentality. They work in a different way. They understand that money is just a transference, and they've figured out how to make their money work for them. They don't work to get money, they get money to make it multiply. Does that make sense? And the amount of different types of income are so vast these days, especially anybody that has a dumb phone. The amount of money that is capable of being made off of one of those things now has been proven over and over and over and over and over. Because it's no longer about showing up and doing the physical work and getting paid per hour. And Jim Rohn was famous for saying, you don't get paid for the hour that you show up. You get paid for the value that you bring to the hour. If all you got paid for was the hour that you showed up, we'd all be rich. Or we'd all be poor, whichever way you look at it, because then everybody'd just be getting paid for showing up. It's the value that you bring to that hour. You look at some of these CEOs, break down their income and what are they making an hour? $2,700 an hour. It's the same hour. But between negotiations, being at the right place at the right time, knowing who you know, knowing what you know, and knowing how to use what you know, they're making $2,700 an hour, and we got people that are screaming that we need to raise the minimum wage because they can't live off of, 15 bucks an hour. Well, how about you work for your 15 bucks an hour, take this thing and learn how to turn that 15 bucks an hour into 45 an hour or 4,500 an hour. A lot of them, it's here, the only limitation. And what really rips me now is, here I am at my age and finally figuring this out and trying to figure out how to change my mental game and get it going. And there are first time in the family millionaires who are 17 years old. To put? Yeah. They didn't come from wealthy families. They had these, they had the internet, and they had the desire to no longer be told that we can't afford to buy you what you want. And so they were like, fine. And they went online and figured out how other people were making a mill. And so they did it well. Talk about burning my toast in the most appropriate way. I'm like, yay, a little. And I don't have an excuse because I own one of these. I have one of these. So what are we putting into our railroad cars? Because those kids actually obviously figured it out. And my train is way longer than theirs. Theirs is only 17 years long. Any thoughts, ahas, epiphanies, questions, ideas? Yes, Francine.
There's a quote. I hope I get it right. It's use the weekend to build the life you want instead of escaping it, or something around those lines.
Yes.
Yeah. Today it's just so easy. Well, even in the old days, it was kind of easy to make like a side hustle, but in 2022, it's way easier to build a side hustle. I've had a few side hustles in my life, and even I used to work not minimum wage, but not far off it. I still have investments, and yeah, I'm not poor. If I have enough to live a comfortable life.
Yeah.
Even I'm not working at the moment. So yeah.
And that's the part that I tell so many people is there's so much money out there that the only thing that holds people back is scarcity mentality. And I can't do that. And that's where I get to work with these people and you know, get them to see the possibilities. The stuff that I found on Instagram, there's a couple of people, Cody Sanchez, if you're Cody, and her beloved stuff of boring income. The stuff that she points out as boring income is just mind blowing because you don't think about it, but people are out there doing it, cashing in. Are they becoming millionaires overnight? No. But they're also not freaking out about whether or not they're going to be able to pay their bills and where their next meal is coming from.
What I did is I used to invest, because I worked at the bank and I saw how things worked. I invested a certain amount of money weekly from my pay. So it was a very small amount. And then, of course, as I earned more, it became bigger and bigger. And now I'm in some ways, you could say I could retire. I just choose not to. I'm not working at the moment because I haven't been too well. But yeah, I'm getting better, and I'm hoping that maybe next year sometime I'll be able to slowly maybe work again, and that'd be nice. And if it's not, it's okay as well, because I still get that income stream.
You're the perfect example right there, Francine. What if you can't work? Have you taken the time to build a little bit of side flow, some side hustle, some side investments that can take care of you in the event that you can't work? The vast majority of the population is what they say, 2 paychecks away from being homeless. Yeah, like talk about living paycheck. I can talk. I've been there. I've lived out of cars and lived in garages and all the above because life happened and boom, there I was. Went from 20-acre spread of awesomeness that I was going to retire on to living in a garage.
And as you said, it just happens like that.
Yep.
Yeah. What was for me the big catalyst to start saving was that I just divorced, and I was suddenly a single mother with just one small income. And then that's when I thought, I can't live like that. If something happens later in life, you're going to be. So I forced myself. I can't remember. I think it was like $20 around there, like monthly, that I put aside. It wasn't much.
Yep.
However, when you look $20 and you invested right, I bought some Bitcoin very early, and I sold it at the top. So yeah.
Yay!
So yeah. Yeah. So we've invested in different things, and I not just used one. I had different, because you never know what's going to work, what's not going to work. And yeah, and then this is something that I never talked about on here, so this is the first. Please don't be offended. I also do astrology, and I've started in the 80s, so I'm kind of good at it. I generally only do people I know. I don't normally do strangers. But yeah, I've made quite a bit of money in the past with astrology because I got the forecast quite right with investments. Yeah.
I don't judge, as long as you're not hurting other people or, stuff like that, what the what?
Yeah, well, I just do it to look at, like Bitcoin, and I saw a potential. And I was sure I was right. But yeah, I'm right. More often than not.
Then that's a great skill to have.
So yeah, and yeah, I'm very lucky. I have a wonderful husband as well. And no, I didn't use astrology to see if it was me. Yeah, time showed us that we're right for each other. I suppose that's the way to go.
And that's a perfect segue into the next one of ignorance versus denial. It's one thing when you just simply don't know. When you're ignorant to what's available, what's out there, what can be done, that's one thing. But when you know it exists, you know that it's there, and you simply deny that it's happening, or that it's available, or that you can do something about it. I think that right now there's a lot of that going on in quite a bit of stuff. With today's technology and the ability to get information moved around and shared and all the above, it's kind of hard to be ignorant about certain things unless you absolutely choose to be. It's easy enough to research, do things, and I'm not talking, oh, I saw it on Facebook, must be true. That's not research. But if that's where you saw it, then you can research it and figure out for yourself if it's real. And if you find out contrary, but you still stick to it because you're in denial, that's a choice. But we got a lot of people that if you talk to them and you drill down, you can find out that they are in denial, and they know they're in denial, and they are fine with being in denial. And it goes to a lot of different things, like the ability to make income, the ability to change, health situations. It's one thing to not realize that you're not that healthy. It's another thing to look in the mirror and realize that even Ray Charles can see you're not that healthy. And you're just like, oh, I've been a little tired lately. No, what have you eaten for the last week? Well, there's nothing wrong with, I order a Diet Coke with my triple mac and cheese and spare ribs and cheesecake. At least I didn't have like a regular diet or a regular Coke. I mean, come on. All right. But I just don't understand why my ankles and my legs hurt. And I just have troubles climbing stairs lately. Those stairs are getting so much harder these days. No. you're not in shape. And yes, if you think I'm talking to you, I'm not. Stop typing. Go see a doctor. See what he has to say. That brought us up to the half-hour mark. Any questions, inputs, ahas on that? I mean, I guess it's pretty straightforward, but yes.
Isn't some of that denial unconscious?
That's where the question lies, doesn't it?
Because I found that even if you or even if you speak to those kind of people in denial, they kind of dismiss it. They're kind of not listening.
Yes.
So I suppose it takes a lot to actually look at yourself and decide I want to see it and I want to fix it.
Right. And that's where does ignorance turn into denial?
Would it be couldn't or wouldn't avoidance also be, or would that still be under denial? Like if you were avoiding it.
That's what I love about verbiage. Are they avoiding finding out the truth so that they can conveniently live in denial? Holly.
I was just going to say, I think there's an actual term for this called cognitive dissonance, and like there are whole books on it. But one of the things they say is, so basically at first it's actual denial, but you actually, in order to live there, you actually have to go back kind of almost to ignorance, if that makes sense. So you're choosing to be in ignorance, but you didn't start there. It started with denial, and then it turned into willful ignorance, is what I would call it.
That's why I love having a community like this, because it gives us more brains to fill in the gaps and help us all out. So that's something to think about during the week when you see certain people and deal with certain people. And as we all know, we have one or more of those family members who, on certain topics, may or may not be living in ignorance or denial, or any of the shades of gray in between. Phew.
I like that term that Holly said, the willful ignorance. Like, wow, that's a good one.
Right?
Yes, very much so.
We've met those people. I don't want to know. I don't want to know about cigarettes. I like my cigarettes. Don't tell me they're bad. I've been smoking for years. I'm fine. All right, Grandpa. You're right. You made it this far. You probably don't need to know what they do to you. Well, Grandpa smoked for 70 years. He's fine. Yeah, but you're 16. You don't need to smoke. I just don't understand that. I should be able to do whatever the hell I want with my body. You're right. As long as you don't expect us to take care of you and you make enough money to pay your medical bills. Just saying. So, are we ready for the next topic? Okay. Dealing with your ex. I'm sure that painted all sorts. I knew that title would get somebody. That's probably why we don't have more people on here right now. I don't want to talk about dealing with my ex. But remember, that can mean a lot of things. And one of the quotes that I had brought up before, and I use in my dating protocol stuff, is, are you cheating on your future self with your ex? Are you still entertaining and hanging out with your old self because they're familiar and comfortable? Uh-huh. Whee! Yes. Dealing with your ex. How many times? God bless all the people, New Year's Eve. I'm gonna change. I'm gonna do this. It's a new year. You don't have to wait till January 1st. You can start with Tuesday. But yes, Francine.
Stopping January 1st is never a good idea. It's better to choose a date whenever you, I don't know. I stopped smoking on the 15th of Jan, 1990. I decided I'm not stopping on the 1st of January because that's the party night. I'm never going to be able to manage. So I decided, well, let's do it 2 weeks later on the 15th. And I haven't touched cigarettes since.
Awesome.
That was in the 90s. So yeah, that was in the 90s. So yeah.
Yeah, I quit nicotine on 666.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a great day to send nicotine to hell. I saw that date coming up, and I wanted to quit, and I had tried it a number of times before, and I'm not cheating with my ex on that one.
Yeah, and as for my ex, I've put a lot of miles between him and I because he was, how can I say, he was, that's a good word. He was difficult to deal with, so I just ran.
Yeah.
I my bag and I ran. Yeah.
And that brings me to another part from my dating protocol. I deal with a lot of people that are having issues with people they've dated before, especially those that are single and want to change that. And they're finding that they're dating the same person over and over, just in a different meat suit. And I thought they would be different, and they turned out to be the same a-hole over and over and over and over and over again. And so I came up with a question for them and for the people that are in a relationship and having issues, having all the issues. And I'm like, okay, have you dealt with these issues in any other relationship before? Including familiar, like family, like mom or dad. Surprise, surprise. Some of those issues are just like what they grew up with. And so I will ask them, and I have to preface it. So if you're working with clients with this stuff, make sure that you preface it with, we're not putting this out into the universe. This is simply a question, just an exercise. We're not sending this towards anybody, but if your person forgot to wake up in the morning, sometime during the night, they just checked out, and after you've had sufficient amount of time to grieve, whether that be 2 months, 2 years, 2 decades, whatever it takes, if you ran into their absolute identical twin down to the DNA, the past, the all of their traits, everything about them, as soon as you saw them, you knew, you felt it. Would you? And the only difference was they had no idea who you were. Would you go up and introduce yourself, and would you date them again? And then you wait and you watch them closely, because they will answer you immediately, even non-verbally. A pause is a big answer. A pause is a no. And I've had clients that there was no pause and it was like, no. But I've also had clients with no pause that went, yes. Then we knew that we had to work then that tells us what direction we have to work in. But the reason I brought this up again for this training is I had a client who has been pining over a decision of a divorce. And so I brought this question up. And they paused for a little bit and then said yes. And I got a download and I said, which version of them? The version you've been pining over, or the version that you divorced? And they had to think about that. I said, because time has a funny way of clouding our memories. I said, when you say yes and you go up and introduce yourself, you're not getting the revised version of all the good stuff. You're getting the entire version. You're getting the person that pushed you to the point of divorce. If you're pining over the best of them, then find another meat suit that incorporates all of the best of what you're pining over. Or better, the person that you divorced, if you had to rate them on a deck of cards, what would they be? 1, 2, 5, 7, 8, 10, Jack, Queen, King? Or we're going to put ace low. Ace is 1. If they're anything under a 10, why? You deserve a king or a queen. And with all the people on this planet, and the fact that you have evolved since that time, and chances are they have as well, but we can't bet on it because they still have the same history, the same DNA, and they know your history. Brings me to that question. Is it easier to raise the dead or to give birth? I just want them back, but I want them fixed, and I can fix them. No. No. But Besides, your 8 is probably somebody else's king. Let them find their king or their queen. You find yours. Any input on that? Because I'm only getting to watch 2 of you. Everybody else is hiding out behind their avatar pictures like, oh.
I wish I had known this 30 years ago.
Oh, me too. Well, wait a minute. Hold on. Keep that thought, please.
Yes.
I'm glad I didn't know this 30 years ago, because I wouldn't have met who I'm with today. 30 years ago, I was not this person. If I could have been this person 30 years ago, well, then there were a couple of candidates, but I don't know that they were ready. They were not ready for me. They were certainly probably not ready for who I am today. So, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but my wife watches this. I love you, honey. Back to you, Francine.
I think I would add the same. If I wouldn't have gone through that, I wouldn't have met Simon, and I wouldn't have had Xavier, my eldest. So yeah, it made me the person I'm today, I suppose. And yeah, I don't regret anything. And I know it was hard. However, I needed to have that wake-up call, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolute makes sense. Complete sense. That's why I had to interject with what I said was 30 years ago, I know who I was dating 30 years ago. And I highly doubt that she'll watch this, so even though I won't mention her name, she gave me some experiences, some knowledge, and helped shape who I was. But would I want to go back and no. Nope.
Yeah, I was in love. It was my first big love, and I totally adored the person. So I don't regret anything. And yes, we had a son, and he's been such a pillar of strength in, he's the one who actually I thought, no, I'll fight for him, not for me, for him. So for my son, so yeah, I don't regret anything. I think that he's been the best thing in my life, and probably, I'm not sure he watches. I normally send him the links, but I'm not sure he watches. But if he does watch, yeah, he's been very much a strength in my life, and I don't regret anything. Yeah. He's an amazing young man.
And that's why I tell people, even if your life wasn't, like, oh, storybook time, it was awesome, I never had a problem. You still have to look back at who did it allow you to become today? And what can you let go of to make today even better than you thought it was? Because a lot of the stuff that happened back then that people are, no offense, they're milking it, happened one time. No, it happened a number of times. Yes, but each time it happened once. And each time that it happened, you had a choice on how you interpreted it, how you allowed it to affect you. And here we are this far down the road, and you're still milking it. You're still allowing it to affect you. And there are people that have gone through horrific things and went, you know what, that I survived it, I made it through, but that is not who I am. Viktor Frankl wrote an amazing book. And if you know what he went through and his ability to continue to say, I have a choice today on what I will make of this. When he talks about the beauty of a fly in a bowl of, they called it soup that they fed in the concentration camps. That's state control that even I'm like, oh, if I could have that type of state control. Can I still deal with people that something was said to them one time at 5 years old and they hung on to it? And they let it, and they're still letting it control them. So you gotta ask yourself, at what point do you let that go and become something bigger than it, different than it, higher than it? We all have the ability to choose. Another great Jim Rohn quote: if you don't like where you are, what you're doing, like your job, move. You're not a tree. The geese in the wintertime are like, peace out, I'm out. Flying south for the winter. There's a couple of dumb ones that stick around all winter long. And are they dumb? I don't know. Maybe they made the trip once and went, really? You know how frickin' far that is? And then I've got to lead every 14 days. And then they're like, where, do you know where you're going? Oh my God, I hate it when you lead. You're always too low. I don't know. And finally they're just like, you know what? You all go. I'll see you when you come back. I'm going to find a place to hang out here. Yeah, it'll be cold, but I learned how to build an igloo. Or maybe there's geese down there that just went, I'm not going up there. I ain't gonna do it. I'm gonna hang out here on the beach. Gonna suck me down a couple of Mai Tais out of a coconut and I'm gonna hang. But they all have the choice. And so do we. Yes, Lenora, I just noticed your hand.
I have a question. You were talking about cheating with your ex earlier, but were you talking about like an actual person, or were you talking about the other, like another version of yourself? Because you started to talk about, and you and Francine were mentioning about smoking. So are you talking about like another, the former version of you, or how you would end up cheating on yourself?
Yes.
That's not fair. I gave you like 45 possibilities.
And all of them are correct. That's why I labeled it that way, because so many people, when they decide they're going to change,
Okay.
and they're going to cut off, they've made a decision to move forward and grow. And then they look back at their old ways and they go right back. So they're cheating on their future self with their ex self, or they're cheating on their potential new partner because they're pining over their ex-partner. There are so many ways that people have such a strong connection to their past, healthy or not, relationships, healthy or not, mindsets, healthy or not, that they keep reverting back to their ex, and they're cheating on their future selves, their future person, or possibly even their present person at the moment. And that's where you have to break it through to them with that question. That's why I love watching your guys' face every time I ask it. Even my clients, when I ask it, they're like, oh, I hate my ex. I am never going back to my ex. I'm like, okay. But you've dated 4 of them. All 4 of them were the exact same. Are you cheating on your potential next partner with your ex because you are so caught up on that type of person? And you have to go in and start breaking that mold, evaluating, learning how to drill down into their values and criteria about what is it, why are they picking that type of person. Sometimes, like I mentioned, it's kind of easy. You find out that dad was an alcoholic smoker who smacked mom around. But that's the household that they grew up in, and it was one of the few ways they got attention. So who do they end up with? Abusive alcoholic smokers. And they don't even see the pattern. And so you find the pattern, you break the pattern, and allow them to move forward. Yes, Francine.
So you said you break the pattern. So you kind of make them, kind of link them all together and see the common denominator. And then once they see that, they can move on. Is that right?
Sometimes it's that easy. Sometimes either way, when you start finding the pattern, these patterns between whether it be themselves or in dating or all the above, is the pattern is one of the things you look for, and the values and criteria that it took to build that pattern and why they stick with it. So like with the reference towards the dating, and finding out that a lot of the people they've dated have been alcoholic narcissists, abusive, and then you start digging down and finding out that dad was an alcoholic narcissist. Well, how were you showing love? Some kids were lucky enough to grow in a household where, it was the Cleaver family. Gee, Beeb, weren't you a little hard on the Beeb last night? Oh, gosh darn, Mom. Don't say darn to your mom. That's big talk here in this, young man. You're only 12. Or the kids who never got attention until they did something wrong, and then they got attention, but that was the only way they figured out they were worthy of attention. And you drill down and you start, finding this stuff out. Well, now you can start working with that stuff. You can have them go back through regression and identity management. Like in the class that I taught, who you were does not have to dictate who you're going to be. If you can act it out, you have the ingredients in your pantry to be whoever you want. but you have to make the decision and hold on to that profile long enough to where that's who you are, that's who you become. And if you start sliding back, even though you now are no longer in denial or no longer in ignorance, you're in denial, right? And that brings us right up to the top of the hour. But before we open up the floor to open mic or anything, do you guys have any other ahas, epiphanies, questions, input? Lenore was like, about 12,000 questions and items. Can we go for another hour on this topic? Welcome to my world. I haven't even been chasing squirrels. Wait till the squirrels show up.
I think they're running back and forth around these parts.
Too much rain here. They decided to head out to where you are. They're like, man, I'm getting soaked. So no, seriously, you guys got any questions on that or input or stuff you'd like to add? No? Too
Well,
confused or yes?
I think I'm in denial, sorry, unconscious denial.
I
I was, and I think I just had an epiphany.
Good.
Yeah.
I
Thank
like
you.
it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. That lets me know that I'm not wasting your time, because time's the only thing I can't give back to you guys. So I'll say it many, many times. I am so grateful for you guys taking your precious time and investing it with me, because I can't give it back. So I want to make sure that what I give you is worth your time.
Yes, it's very interesting. I have a tendency to slip back into old ways, and I was always thinking, why is that? Now I think I get it.
Yeah, because it's familiar and it's comfortable.
Yeah.
When I teach my class, Identity Management University, aka IMU, one of the things I have to inoculate everybody on is the new mask that you build of who you show the world now will most likely feel very light and airy and almost like you're vulnerable, because it's going to be the new mask of who you want to be. And a lot of people haven't seen this mask before. And the ones that are going to give you the biggest grief about it, of course, will be the ones that have known you the longest. Old friends and especially family. Well, who do you think you are showing up with that mask? That's not your mask. This is the one we built for you. We've seen this on you your entire life. Put this one back on. But I can't breathe with the damn thing on. That's your problem. And so you get to decide whether or not the new personality, the new mask, is your primary, or is it a temporary one that you put on every now and then. The old mask is very easy to put on. Even if it's suffocating, even if it's uncomfortable, when you go to the family reunion and mom and dad won't let you wear any other mask than that one, you can put it on. Take a deep breath before you put it on. Walk in with a smile. Wear that mask as short as possible, and as you're leaving to head back home, rip that mask off, going, oh, oh, I hate wearing that mask. Oh, it's so uncomfortable. I can hardly breathe with that thing on. And go back to being whoever you want. This one right here that you guys get to see, Triple T, it's a new mask. It has some new features, and there are times, I ain't gonna lie, sometimes I get a little freaked out on Tuesday afternoon because I want to make sure that it holds up enough value to keep to make it worth your while.
It is, even with all the millions of questions that I have.
But it would be real easy for me to put on an old mask and come up with an excuse and go do something that I'm really familiar with. I could easily just find a reason and go out to my shop and fiddlefutz, and that is a word, fiddlefutzing. I do it well.
Well, thank you, TJ. I want to tell you, I very much appreciate that. And you should know I am so tired. I am literally laying on the floor. But I had to be here. Okay. So that's how much we appreciate that.
Well,
And especially the squirrels. I love squirrels.
oh, my squirrels love you guys too, because when they show up, you giggle and smile. And so I appreciate that. And we're into open mic, open platform. Do you guys have anything that you have questions on or would like ask, or you would like to share with the group? Or else I've got a topic of pause fill, but this is your time. So whatever you guys want, let me know, please. Yes, please.
I'll go then. Well, I'm not sure which. I think there were a few where you mentioned Jordan Peterson.
Yes, Jordan, you're listening.
I had a look, and I wanted to say, wow, wow. I know the guy is controversial. Don't get me wrong. I know he said a few controversial things.
Yeah, thank God.
I would say I agree with. At first, I agree with 50%, and then I just carried on listening and listened to him expand. And I started reading his book. Not actually reading. I do audiobook. I struggle with reading because of the brain injury.
Yeah.
However, I found that he's given me quite a few pointers as well. And one of the things that were really helpful was he said that fear is a powerful to get you moving. He used the term for it.
Motivator?
Sorry?
Fear is a powerful motivator.
Yes, that's it. Fear is a powerful motivator. And I think that combined with what you said earlier, that we're cheating on our future self and to breaking the patterns and the old mold, I think I have a new tool. Thank you.
Yay! Awesome.
He's opened my mind. Wow, I'm still a bit shocked as how I used to think I was open-minded. I had no idea.
Well, I met with a guy on Saturday. We're going to collaborate together on some stuff, and I told him one of the fun things about traveling and living in a different place is the quotes that I grew up with are new and new to so many people. And one quote that I said to him that he had never heard before is, minds are like parachutes. They work a lot better when they're open. And he had never heard that before, you know, and I've heard it so many times I take it for granted that, you know, but yeah, minds are definitely like parachutes. They work much better when they're open, because I've watched a lot of people with closed minds crash.
I found that what he says is so different from what I've heard before, that you actually have to think about it.
Yes.
And you can't straight away agree, because you think, I don't know, let me think about it. So I paused the book, and then I go around and I speak to Simon, and he says, oh, really? That's it. And then, you know, we have like discussions, and then I end up agreeing with him.
Yeah,
so it's especially what he says about women is a hard pill to swallow as a woman.
yeah.
However, looking back, I'm afraid to say I'm going to have to agree with him.
Good.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to say it. That's part of the problem with the world right now. Everybody is so afraid to be controversial or to say something because they might offend somebody. And everybody's offended about something nowadays. Everything. And I'm like, good, but don't freak out about it, and don't turn it into this massive wound, like, oh, you offended me, oh my goodness. I'm like, really? Really? Show me on the dolly where you're hurt. I mean, yes, I know he said something you don't agree with and it offended you, but show me on the dolly. Do you need medical assistance? Do we need to get you to the hospital? You're offended. It's okay. When I grew up, yeah, and I'm sure you heard the same thing.
Well, no,
Sticks
I
and
was
stones.
offended. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was offended with what he said. You know, I thought, no, it can't be. However, when I thought about it and I looked back into my life and then analyzed it a little bit, I said, you know, actually, I think he's got a point.
Good.
You know? Yeah, it's a different way of seeing things, you know, and that's okay. You know, he's got good points. I'm not saying I agree with everything he says.
Good.
Yeah, but he's got great points. You know, it's interesting. I was challenged, and it's very little that has been challenging me these last couple of years. So yeah, it's great. It's very good. Thank you for that. Much appreciated.
It's just like Gary Vaynerchuk. I've had so many people tell me that, you know, well, listen to him, boy, is he offensive? And I'm like, but what was the offensive part? The swearing? Oh, yeah, he swears a lot. I'm like, but other than that, what he said, what did you get out of what he said? Well, what he said was good, but he offended me when he swore. I'm like, then forget about the swearing. Take the message.
Sorry, Gary who? Gary
Vaynerchuk, Gary V. Vaynerchuk, Vaynerchuk.
Gary Vaynerchuk.
And he swears a lot. Yeah.
I can swear like a sailor, so I don't have that.
Me too. I've had a couple of people that were like, well, you just never, you know, people like that, just people that know those words are just sick in the head. And I'm like, I know all those words. I just choose where to say them. And Gary, on the other hand, I'm going to reach out to Gary and I'm going to teach him this so he can do it on stage. And for those of you that this is the first time you've seen me do this, you'll have to reach out to me personally and I'll tell you, I'll teach you. By the way, I do give a free 30-minute consultation. So reach out, contact me. 30 minutes of my time, and we can talk about anything you want. And if you're looking to get help or work on stuff, we'll go through and see if we're a match. If we're not, then I will make sure that I find somebody that can help you. Because I found that by the time people reach out to my industry, that's because they can't find witch doctor in the yellow pages. So yeah, we do the best we can, but I just love to help people. 15 minutes into your platform, anybody else got anything that they want or questions?
I think the word offended is just getting aggressively overused. Like,
Thank
do you
you.
remember a couple of months ago when everybody was getting slammed? Like, so-and-so slammed this person, so-and-so slammed this person. And it was just a comment. And it's just very, I mean, the media's relentless, but not in a good way. Everything's yeah, because I mean, and Francine, you raised some wonderful points with Jordan Peterson. There are things that he does say that are very strong, and you almost have to think about it to really say, okay, well, am I offended? Does it actually apply to me, or is it just a strong opinion of somebody, and it may be accurate over a decent amount of people, but it might not apply to every single person or every single female or every single male or something like that. But I do find a lot of his stuff was very, if you just observe it and look at it and just sit with the discomfort. Sorry, is that what you're going to say? It's very interesting to hear somebody else's point, but he speaks so beautifully. He's very intentional in his words, which I think is something very important because he's very well thought out in his thought process.
I found that some of his things, I was like, no, 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 like that first. And then I sat down and said, hey, Francine, just sit down. It's just what he said, don't get offended. So I sat down and I let it play, and I thought, nah, can't be. And then, I discussed it with Simon, and then Simon said, oh, what about this and that? And then I had, of course, to look at myself and say, yeah, actually, he's got a point. And some of it didn't offend me at all, but it was like, oh, I don't think that could possibly be true, because this is what I learned in psychology. So he's actually challenging all of the psychology stuff I've learned. And yeah, it's a challenge. It's a real challenge to listen to what he has to say. And yeah, he's very interesting, and I found he's really helped me a lot.
One of the things that I like about people getting offended is literally it'll show the bricks in the foundation of your values and criteria. And I'm not against people getting offended. I think we all should, because it is your subconscious standing up for your values and criteria. But when you allow your when you allow your values and criteria to be so rigid that if you don't agree with me, then you're against me. Really? How about if you don't agree with me, what are you for? What are you actually saying? What part of what you said has offended me? Like when I pointed out Gary Vaynerchuk, a lot of people, part of me is bummed out that he swears as much as he does, because a lot of the people that need to hear his message are too thin-skinned to be able to accept his swearing. I'm like, well, then forget the swear words, but what did you get out of the message? Well, I didn't listen to it at all. I heard that one swear word and I was like, I'm done. Wow, how sad.
About swearing, I've heard that people who are swearing a lot are generally more honest than those who aren't at all. Interesting. I'm not sure that's true, but yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, and if I didn't have to worry about YouTube getting all finicky with me, there's a few words that I'd like to float out there. And
there's some environments where swearing is just wonderful.
yes,
Out in the bush where you're not offending anyone. I went out with a drilling team at one time, out in the middle of nowhere, and every word was hyphenated with at least 2 swear words.
yeah.
And it became a real art form. It was so liberating. But it was hard coming back into the general population and stopping doing it.
There. And that's the challenge that I learned at a very young age. I started hanging out in a mechanic shop when I was 12. And you get a bunch of Minnesota redneck boys working in a mechanic shop, and pretty soon we've got sailors blushing because we know how to swear so well. And unfortunately, a couple of our nice church-going lady customers came in, and one of the guys forgot they were in his presence and rolled out a few sentences that you could see hit the ladies in the forehead like a sledgehammer. And that's when Andy went, and you know what? We're not going to swear in the shop anymore. We're done. Because it's too easy to accidentally let it slide, and it doesn't enhance our conversation in here. After hours, don't care. Business hours, keep it clean. And that's where I learned the pick and choose as to when I get to use those. But it's been proven that swear words and provocative language actually gets you another amount of attention from people.
It's also very effective if you hurt yourself to relieve.
Oh, yes. Yep. And that's been proven as well. They've actually proven that there's something in the swearing that releases.
I think it's some sort of hormonal release, like oxytocin, serotonin. It just something happens that it just flushes it out of your system.
Yes. In fact, if I can figure out a way to keep it clean, one of my favorites was I was working construction and we were putting new foundations under lake cabins. And so they had half the cabins being worked on, the other half were being rented out. And this weekend that we were working, actually it was a whole week, a bunch of nuns rented out all the cabins for a retreat. And so you got us carpenter boys, and one happened to be the same dude that made the mistake at the mechanic shop. I was working with him as well doing construction, and we were underneath the cabins with big I-beams, metal I-beams, and he happened to crack his head along the side of an I-beam hard enough to make it ring, and proceeded to give himself some swearing medicine. And I'm like, hey, the nuns. He's like, oh, but it hurts. Ugh. I'm like, dude, I get it. I hurt just hearing it, watching you do it. 5 minutes later, totally repeated it. Hit it on the same side as hard, went right back into the swearing medication. Just as 4 nuns are walking by, and I go, hey, the nuns. He goes, F the nuns. I don't care about. The nuns, God bless them, looked at him and they giggled because they were like, F the nuns? I mean, that hurt. He gets blessings on you, my son. Hopefully that never happens again. You are forgiven. We understand. We heard the metal ring. We hurt for you. So, yeah, we all get those. 7:26 here means we're 26 minutes into your platform. Anything else you would like to talk about? And we also have pause fill on the table if you guys want me to talk about that. So, any takers? Yes, Lenore.
Okay, so question for the group. How do you manage your day-to-day stress? Like what do you guys do in the morning? Or do you set anything up? The reason I ask is because I've noticed that I tend to hold a whole lot in my digestive system. What do you guys got?
All right.
That's a good release in the morning.
Yeah.
That would be called making room for the stress to show up.
I start my morning with having a shower, and then I started warm, not hot, warm. And then I ended up with a Wim Hof, like a cold shower, and breathing exercises, meditation. I also do that. I can't remember what it's called. These exercises. It's a technique. Trying to think who's teaching it. I can't.
Somatic?
Yeah, some kind of somatic exercises.
Okay.
There's a YouTube video on it. I found them very helpful. Yeah, meditation, breathing exercises. That's what I do in the morning. And then at lunchtime, I have to take a break. I also make sure I eat healthy and drink a lot of water and run a lot too. Yeah. And then at night, I do it again. I do not the shower, but I do the breathing exercises, the exercises. And I also I found that I store a lot of trauma in my hips. So I do a lot of hips exercises as well. Yeah.
Who else? Fran?
I wish I could do the hot shower followed by the cold, but I just hate cold water. I hate going in a cold sea. It has to be so damn hot outside and the sea warm enough before I'll go in it. You know, I know it's good for you. I know it makes a really positive difference, but I just won't do it. It's just too shocking to the system. And I know that's the point, damn it, I'll just hijack it. I want to know, I've been figuring out or starting to learn about the vagus nerve and the development of the vagus nerve. I've been looking a little bit at polyvagal theory, but my brother's a neurophysiologist and says it's a load of bunkum as far as he's concerned. And if I can explain it to him, he'll listen. And, you know, some of what I've read is interesting, and some of it's definitely a bit, I really don't think this holds up under scrutiny. But I'm really excited about the development of the vagus nerve, particularly in utero and early newborns, and how that relates to trauma, particularly in, neonate traumas and maybe pre-birth trauma. So, I'm really interested in the trauma side of things and what can be done about that. So stimulating the vagus nerve, seems to be a foot in the door. Does anybody know anything about this? I'm investigating. I don't know enough yet.
I've learned that these exercises here actually stimulate the vagus nerve because so you do it from top to down. That's my therapist who explained it to me. So it's kind of exercises like this and like that, but you only go one way, you don't come back that way. You just go up, down, and then from here down as well, and also down on the arms. Apparently that stimulates the vagus nerve. I found it can be soothing if I remember doing it.
Well, that's also in keeping with the Sistema massage techniques that they actually recommend that. So this was actually one of the things that got me interested in the vagus nerve in the first place, was and stroke recovery. A friend of mine has had a stroke 5 years ago and is working on recovery. And in one of the Sistema workshops I witnessed, there were twins. One twin had a massive stroke and the other, and was really not expected to be anything more than a vegetable. But the second twin refused to give up and worked with massage and touch to re-stimulate the body and the brain connection. And after 10 months, the brother that had the stroke was walking around, had one weak side, but was functioning, could talk. And, had to have that much recovery from that massive a stroke in 10 months was just amazing. And I'm thinking, well, what else can be done?
That's amazing. I like that.
Yes.
And, touch is one of the things that gets not recognized enough. And, as adults in this culture, we tend not to do a lot of touching, and, maybe there's only certain people you want touching you, but touch is such a vital thing to stimulate your body and your mind. And if you don't get it from outside, you really need to do it for yourself. And, the self-stimulation, like Francine was saying, even with the vagal nerve massage, and there's other points, there's ears, and also rolling and crawling, and will, again, sort of simulate the baby movements and become very soothing for a distressed person. And somebody else, or one of the people I was listening to, said not only lateral rocking movements, but also vertical rocking movements, very gentle, very slow rocking movements. I don't know if any of you have lain in a little rowboat on a gentle pond and just been rocked and sort of felt the creaking and the movement of the water, but it's so soothing. And that, to me, gets back to a very safe place. And trauma is the opposite. Trauma takes you out of that safe place. So I'm trying to pull the two together. So in another aspect of dealing with trauma. Is that too way out for people? Have you got any comments?
I was just listening to a video, and they were saying that the first thing with trauma is to actually going back to a safe place to be able to manage it. So, and you were saying the rocking of the slow, gentle movement of the water, doesn't that imitate the inside of the mum's, you know? So yes, it's interesting, very interesting. I like that. Thank you for that, Fran. I will try the crawling. And I will do the crawling. I will do it. I won't try. I will do it.
Not just crawling, but rolling over, because that, again, before crawling, rolling over is the movement that babies do, because they have to actually get on their bellies before they can start crawling. So the actual rolling, the rocking turns into rolling over. So actually, and that's apparently some of the Feldenkrais techniques re-stimulate some of that as well. So it sort of fits into the kinesiology side of things too.
But one of my many things that I've done, I also have a background in massage therapy. And a super cool story that I was taught by one of my instructors was a story of there was this young bride who absolutely hated her mother-in-law, as in hate, pure hate, and wanted to kill her. So she went to a local apothecary who was very smart. She said she wanted a poison that would kill her mother-in-law, but would be undetectable. And so, being the wise man that he was, he said, drink this, this will protect you from the poison. And then he gave her a lotion. He said, you need to rub this into her skin every day for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, the poison will have done its deed and she will pass away and nobody will be able to tell the difference. She was like, perfect. So she set out figuring out a way to rub the lotion into her mother's skin, and he said you have to rub it on as much skin as possible. So she started giving her mother-in-law massages. And while they were massaging, they got to converse. And as they got to converse, they found out things about each other that they didn't know. And after about a week and a half, the young bride realized, I screwed up. I don't want her dead. And ran back to the apothecary, and she's like, I need the antidote. I don't want to kill my mother. And he goes, it's all right. The antidote was in the lotion. Because there's a transference in massage. And one of the local massage therapists that I saw here, I've been teaching them energy work along with massage. And there were a couple of times that in the teachings, it hurt because I said, you have to picture the energy that you're putting in and what type of energy and what you're thinking of at the time. She was working on my feet, and I said, think about your ex. Woo! I almost levitated off the massage table because the pain that went through my foot. And I knew she didn't rub any harder. It was the energy transference. And she noticed it right away and went, I'm sorry, did I hurt you? I said, no, you put in energy. And that's where she learned how to start using different energy to conserve hers.
Well, I think you've just explained there why I found it actually really challenging to work on certain people with either hands-on energy or touch or massage. I will be very selective with people I work with and actually in more than one area, because of the transference of the energy. I just find that some people, they're too disruptive to my energy field. I just, stay out there, stay in your space. And I probably know how to get through it, but I just don't want to do it. So I don't.
Yeah, and you have to be very cognitive of it. I'll be right with you in a minute, Rona. But part of it, you also have to understand what to do with the energy once you get it. Too many of us, especially empaths, soak it in like a sponge and have no idea how to get rid of it. And you have to, one of the tricks is having certain types of live plants in the house because they thrive off of it. But you have to be able to grab it and literally shed it onto those plants. That's why I have a plant right here in my office, because when I'm working with people, there are times when I'm done, I can feel it just, and I have to pull it off, and the plant's doing well.
I even find that with hypnosis, that I am selective with my clients. I don't just take anybody on. There has to be a certain empathy, even if they've had, real bad stuff happen in their life. But if I don't like the person, I don't want to work with them.
Yeah. And even with massage therapists, there's that difference between technically whether they're very good technical therapists and when they're very good energy therapists. I've had some massages that they weren't very technically good, but it was some of the most relaxing massages I've ever had. And then I've had people that know their stuff. I mean, they know this technique, they know that technique, but their touch, they touch you and you're just like, So that's why I tell people, I've had a lot of people, I got a massage once, I hated it, it sucked. I went, have you ever gone to a restaurant that wasn't that good? So you quit going to restaurants? Just same with chiropractors. When I moved to San Diego, I went through 8 chiropractors before I found one that worked with me. And Lenora, you had caught you right in the middle of energy transference. I know. It's like, thanks for giving me the attention. It's just like the restaurant. When do they come up and ask you how everything is? As soon as you take that big bite of that burger, how is everything? You're like,
Actually, the yawn was stuck, so now it's like somewhere in limbo. Fran, from Brent Baum, he does do work via Zoom, and then also when he's in person during COVID, he would call it a body scan, and he would, without actually touching them, he would still do the scan of that person to see where they were. So in the event that you don't want to be close to somebody and you're trying to put up that that protection for yourself, that was the alternative that he had mentioned, was to still link up, but for your own protection, so that you don't feel like it's too much.
Yeah, which kind of leaps to the next step, which is when I do energy work from a distance, I actually find very often that it's more powerful than doing it hands-on.
Yeah. Yeah, when we were teaching energy healing, it was time to do exercises, because David does 3-on-3, 3x3 protocol, and I didn't have a partner because of odd man out. He goes, well, isn't there somebody that has something? And I remembered that a friend of mine had said they were having lower back pain. So I texted her quick. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do a remote energy work on you. what color is the energy in your back? And she had been around us long enough to, it didn't, it wasn't like, the what? So she sends it back. And so I did this remote work on her and everything. And I sent a text, did the work, let me know when it arrives and what color the energy is. And we just got called back and everybody's doing a debrief, and all of a sudden I get the text, just got it, purple. And so David gets to me and he goes, so what'd you find out? I said, well, I did this remote viewing with an avatar. I had them send me a picture of them so I could build an avatar, did the work and everything. And he goes, cool, where are they? And I said, oh, I think they're in Colorado. So I texted quick, where are you right now? Texas. Yeah, I thought I was sending all of this healing energy to Colorado, and the universe just went, no, they're down Texas way. And so that also taught me that with correct intention, doesn't matter where they are, you can affect them with what we do. And for those of you that are watching the recording going, again, I give a free 30-minute consult. You can contact me and I'll explain it best I can. Otherwise, watch the rest of the videos. I'm sure we'll bring it up again sometime. Or join us live. Then you can actually ask questions in person. And that brings us 14 minis left in Triple T number 34. Anybody got anything else that they would like to throw in the mix? Yes, no? Oh.
Well, when you were talking about having a massage and thinking about necks and then having that extreme sensitivity in your feet or discomfort in your feet, I went to a yoga class once where we were doing extreme bends or reverse bends, and I found that extreme stretching of the spine released an awful lot of stuff. And with that rather strange pose, I suddenly found myself bursting into tears. I didn't feel particularly upset, but it definitely released something, and it was extremely powerful. So how we store trauma in our body is really exciting to me.
Hey, Linda.
Can you talk more about stored in your body?
What you brought up is very real. A lot of people, even when receiving massages, there will be certain areas where you start working into, and they'll have what they don't understand is an abreaction. They'll burst out in laughter thinking that it tickles, but it doesn't really tickle. Or they'll start crying, or they'll start sweating profusely all of a sudden. And you've found an energy storage area. And then, cramping. When she was working on my feet, and my feet started cramping big time. And I said, what are you thinking of? What color is the energy in there? Yeah, she'd been having a bad day. She wasn't rubbing hard. She was having a bad day, and it was transferring from her hands through my feet. And thankfully we'd already talked enough that she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and I'm like, "No, it's fine. What color is the energy? Tell me." And she was like, "It's red." I went, "Yeah. What color makes red better?" Yellow. And as soon as she started focusing and massaging with yellow energy, not only could she rub harder, but the cramping went away just like that.
And that's interesting that I have a favorite sports masseur, and he works on one side of the body first and releases the tensions there. But by the time he gets to the other side of the body, it's really quick because the other side of the body's been listening to the first side of the body and says, "Oh, yeah, that's how we do it." And it releases so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And these are all things that more people should know. But we had talked earlier about the difference between ignorance and denial. Most of the population is unfortunately ignorant to all of this energy stuff, and a vast amount of them that have had exposure to it, they're either with us or they're in denial. And those of us that understand it and experience it as much as we do, there's no denying. You can try all you want. It's real. Don't believe me? Show up. I've shown people the difference between getting hit with hate and getting hit with love. Guess which one hurts the most? Take a guess. What do you guys think?
The greater
Love,
impact
'cause
would be the love, because it gets through.
Love is more powerful.
Getting hit with love will make your grandchildren cry. The other way direction, yeah. Dr. Dawn Liu, Dr. David Snyder's wife, short little thing, but I don't know if she's 95 pounds. I watched some guy make the mistake of my size, 6'4", about 225. David was talking about energetic punch and what it felt like to get hit with love energy. And he was dumb enough. I want to feel what that feels like. I'm like, you're a special kind of stupid. I'll watch. I'll even videotape it. And Dr. Dawn, all 5'4" of her, whatever, he's standing like this to her, facing her this way. She didn't face him this way to be able to have full impact. She stands this way to him and just does this and buckled him and sat his butt in a chair. And that's all it looked like. I mean, she didn't do this or nothing. She just pictured love and went and folded him, hit him with love, and hurt him to his great grandparents' age. And he got up and I went, "So, how was that for you?" He goes, "Are you kidding me?" I went, "Yes, that's the power of energetic hit. And love is much stronger than hate." Also taught me, you don't judge anybody in a fight. You don't know what their training is, what they know, what they're capable of. My ego will heal much quicker than my body will. I have no problem running. All the things that we cover on Triple T. Whee! So we got 6 minis left. What do we want to do with our 6 minis? Anybody got anything else they want to? Okay, so we've gone over echo talk numerous times. Yes or yes? And so today with one of my clients in one of my hybrid sessions where they're basically getting direct training from me one-on-one, and then if something pops up, we go into clearing their stuff. But we were going over echo talk, and it's been a while since I taught pause fill. Have any of you gotten pause fill training from me? I see Lenora shaking her head. She's like, uh-huh. Pause fill, and I'm going to exaggerate where you would use it. When you have those people that talk like they have to sit there and formulate the words during a sentence, you can echo talk a single word inside of those pauses. And it's not to hijack the conversation or take it over or any of the thing, or you're not trying to fill in or guess the word. You're going to use one of the words that they're using. But an amazing phenomena will happen, and to the point, it happens to me even when I'm teaching it, because my brain can't even deny it. When you echo one of those words back to them quickly in the pause, their body will go, uh-huh, and then they'll keep talking. And then you'll hit them with another pause fill, and they'll be like, uh-huh, and then they'll keep talking. And it does two things. One, they continue to feel heard, validated, and understood. You're paying attention. But it takes the pressure off of them, because a lot of them understand that they're putting a lot of pauses in. And that's where the pauses make people kind of anxious. That's why we fill them in with all the pause fills, the and all the things that Toastmasters pays attention and calls us out on. But from now on, if you get the chance and you think of it, kind of turn it into a game and start using pause fill with your echo talking, and just watch their heads do that quick little nod. And a lot of times it'll be accompanied with a smile as they start talking again.
Children particularly love this. If you just say a word back to them that they've been talking about, and then they'll continue on, it really makes them feel validated and heard and enthusiastic about telling you more about what they're saying.
Yeah, it's amazing. One little word, and they felt heard, validated, and understood. And that brings us up to 1 mini to go. And that's usually enough time for me to, well, actually it's not enough time, but it's all the time I'll use to thank you all so much for showing up and making this little dream of mine continue on for 34 of these. And if it wasn't for you guys, I'd just be out in the shop fiddlefutzing, because I wouldn't be on here talking to myself. So thank you. Hopefully I've made you're giving me your time worth it, because that means a lot to me. Every week it means so much to me. And again, for those of you, if you're watching the recording and you watched it all the way through, thank you as well. Please share these and get the word out, and hit subscribe and click the button and comment. Yes, I love seeing the comments on there. Thanks, Holly. Thank you, Linda. And again, thank you all. We are straight up on the top of the hour. So time for this tall, skinny white boy to say, see you in 7. I'll go out, have fun, live a great life, be nice to people.
Awesome job, TJ. Thank you, everybody, for your awesome insight.
Thanks, TJ.
You guys rock.
We
Thank
do.
you.
Yes, you do.
You too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.